What a lot of people here understand is having a hearing on any legislation is extremely powerful. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of legislation that get introduced in a session of Congress in any given year or any given term. And for a piece of legislation to actually be selected for a hearing is powerful. It legitimizes that legislation as part of the Democratic agenda or part of the Democratic discussion. It also submits a large amount of documents and testimony to the congressional record. And on top of all of that, when that testimony gets out and when that video gets out, as we've seen, especially in this term, it creates galvanizing moments for the country. Hearings educate the public. And I think that what so much of the resistance to this comes from, it comes from special interest, it comes from the for-profit insurance companies, it comes from big pharma, because they're scared that when people actually start to learn the substance behind Medicare for All, that you can pay for it, that it results in higher healthcare outcomes, that it is enormously just, and that it could be some of the most transformative policy that we've had in our healthcare crisis and affordability crisis in the country. Once all of that gets out, then the cat is out of the bag, and this movement will really start to roll in a legislative way, and it will start to build momentum in a legislative way. But there is no other legitimate plan in this country for healthcare that has popular support other than single-payer healthcare or universal coverage brought in by a public option. And those are really the only elements in this discussion in terms of a solution. And so that's why there's so much resistance, I think, towards a hearing, because lobbyists, and as we all know, money in politics is a very powerful force. And it's not just merely transactional. It's not like some big bad lobbyist calls you and says, you better not hold these hearings. But the influence of money in politics is much deeper than that. It's in the people that are selected as policy advisors. It's in the folks that influence and write the white papers that members read. A lot of times members don't even know that they're being surrounded by lobbyists. That's how deep this situation is. Who we put in the driver's seat in writing this policy matters. If people are committed to finding the answer, then we will work to find that answer, but we have to commit to finding that answer. I think that's a lot of what was so important about Ady's testimony today.
For me, it was an incredibly energizing and life-giving day. We are building a movement, and it is made up of millions of folks outside of these walls, and it now includes incredible champions inside as well, and together we are going to win Medicare for all. So, please all you out there, join us. It will be liberating for you and it will transform our nation.
It's so important that our activism just remains alive and that we continue to use it as part of a daily activity. I think of activism as a part of being in community. And if we're not engaged in that, if we're just worried about organizing only around elections, then we won't get the agenda that we actually are electing people for. And so it's to have that activism and that organizing, all of it is critical. You know, just coming out and testifying and organizing your community and educating your family about policies and building support on the ground for policies like Medicare for All. Those activists and those kinds of activist actions are just as important as anything that I do in a given day in Congress. Because if I don't have the public support to lean on for these policies, then they're not going to go anywhere. So it's how all of these things link together that we're able to create that movement.